Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Senator O'Sullivan. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, and thank you for appearing today. My questions, apart from the first and third, are fairly brief. So the first one, in reference to testimony at the last estimates, and I've got copies of your questions on responses to our questions and notice. The AEC bought but did not use the Skittle software. Rather, you wrote your own. To write your own election software is a really impressive feat. We've been talking to people and they're very impressed. May I ask how many staff were on the development team, please?
I'd have to take that on notice.
Okay. What was the total cost of doing that?
I'd have to take that on notice as well.
What testing did you use before deployment? I'd imagine some kind of parallel running or some form of a dry run.
Well, in fact, we did multiple forms of testing and assurance, Senator, as I'm sure you would, as I'm sure you'd be aware. And look, Senator, to be abundantly helpful here, we're happy to provide you a more detailed personal briefing on this. I'm happy to talk to you about it. It is a complex process. As you're aware, we've been using our checked software, EasyCount, for a number of years, and we've redeveloped that. That's effectively what we deployed as part of the 2016 solution. And as I think we said last time, the CITL solution, we got CITL on board as really as a business assurance process to make sure that we had software that was going to work, a 12-week period to deliver it. The software we're using has been checked, double-checked and assured, and not only that, the important point to note, it's totally in line with the existing legislation, and all of the data that we then generate from that software is put online, and the results are then replicated by a number of psephologists and political science departments who use that data to replicate the count, and it exactly matches the outcome of our own. So there's a range of different ways of assuring that this software is fit for purpose.
Okay, thank you. Still part of the first question. Were any of the staff involved doctorate or master's degree qualified in a suitable discipline such as mathematics or cryptology?
Senator, I'd have to take that on notice.
Could we get their names, please, when you provide it on notice?
No.
Okay. And how long did it take?
We had, for the 2016 process, we had that 12-week period, Senator, as I've said previously.
Yeah. And can you provide their qualifications?
Senator, again, if you can help me here on letting me know where you're trying to head, maybe I can provide some more fulsome answers.
Well, perhaps we can go into that in the briefing. I'd love to take you up on that. So, did your bespoke solution use any code from Skittle? And if so, what percentage?
It did not.
None at all? Great. Your software, you intimated, has been audited in accordance with standards published by the National Association of Testing Authorities, NATA. That certification does not specify a standard for the auditing of election software. It's more of a general process for an audit to follow, as I understand it. Having the audit is not a guarantee that your software works within acceptable accuracy levels, although these issues may come out in an audit. Who conducted the audit and how much did it cost and what was the result?
Senator, as I've just said, if you can help me here by telling me where you're trying to head with this process, I would get some of these questions if somehow the results of this were somehow secret or behind closed doors. We use a piece of software that's been tested and assured on multiple occasions. At the same time, all of the data that this software produces is then publicly published on our virtual tally room and on our website, which on election day is one of the most used pages in Australia. That data is then used by a variety of psephologists and computer and political science experts to replicate those results. It's intensely public. If you're trying to indicate that there's some sort of issue, I just don't understand why you'd be doing that when there's been no evidence of that at all.
Well, we're just concerned about the auditing, that's all, because we got some answers from I think it was ANAO, that didn't give us assurance. So let's go on to some of the physical things then. Of the 511 polling places in the last election, how many of those had computers or other devices that communicated with the AEC computer system or were capable of doing so?
Senator, Jeff Pope, Deputy Electoral Commissioner. I'm not sure what you're referring to with 511 polling places. We had nearly 8,000.
Would that be state?
Perhaps you might be
It
referring
says
to...
here, while it is not a mandatory requirement for pre-poll voting centres at the 2019 federal election, 115 of the 511 pre-poll voting centres, so pre-poll, sorry, pre-poll. My mistake.
Right.
Had me worried there.
You had me worried.
How many have got a physical connection? How many had a physical connection?
For what purpose, Senator?
Well, I'm going to go into that in the next few questions.
Are you meaning in terms of the role and...
There are, we have electronic certified lists in every one of those pre-poll
right.
centres at the last event,
Yeah.
where citizens' names are marked off the roll.
No, it's beyond that. I note from your answer on questions on notice F065 on polling place security that those electronic devices were protected by a monitored back-to-base alarm in only 115 of the 511 polling places. Were any other measures in place to protect the cyber integrity of those devices during the election period? For example, were they air-gapped? Were they turned off at night? Was there IP traffic monitoring for the period when they should have been none because they were turned off? That's what we're after.
I think all of the above.
You think?
We'll take it on notice, but
Okay.
again, we've had no issue with any breach of our software or our hardware with respect to delivery of the election.
At all, and no indicator of any breach. And our handling of all of that data and the physical equipment was in line with relevant Commonwealth guidelines and regulations and the risk assessment that we undertook.
Okay. I'm just doing my job on behalf of my constituents.
I get it, Senator, and I'm doing my job
Yes.
on also defending one of the world's best and most transparent electoral systems.
Well, I'm not attacking it. I'm just making sure that
Fantastic. And
constituents...
so we're both doing our jobs in terms of
Correct.
making sure that citizens have the information they need to form their judgments.
Correct. I've only got 3 questions to go. In your response to questions on notice F068, you make the comment, quote, all preferences on all Senate ballot papers are reviewed by at least one person at the scanning site. Does that mean that they compared the scanned ballot with the paper ballot to ensure accuracy? Because that's the impression your answer gives. Do they compare the actual scanned ballot with the paper ballot?
Senator, the process is that data is both manually entered and scanned, and then that's matched with the automated process.
So all the ballot papers are manually entered?
Manually entered, but all paper is scanned when it first arrives. Then from that image, which is an image, that data is then entered, and then the data from the scan is then compared with that to make sure that they match. Where they don't match, we undertake further processes.
Could you explain that in terms of, we have a physical paper ballot that is scanned in?
Correct.
And then...
It captures an image.
Right. And then what is compared with that image?
That image is then presented to the data entry operator who enters the data from that image.
From the image?
Right.
So he or she enters it physically?
Correct.
So that's the manual part?
That's the manual part. Then at the same time, the data capture process, as part of capturing the image, is then compared with that manual process. Where that matches, that's taken to be an accurate match, and that's included in the count. Where it doesn't match, we undertake further processes. So
last estimates in October, I asked what percentage of computer records are checked back against a paper record, and you took that on notice. Your lengthy answer failed to provide a figure. Is that because it's 100%?
Which was the question, Senator?
I asked what percentage of computer records are checked back against the paper record, and you took that on notice. Your lengthy answer, which is, I think, F068. Hang on, it might be 084. Sorry, 084. So as I was saying, your lengthy answer failed to provide a figure. Counting ballots is a quantitative exercise, so everything comes down to figures. What percentage of electronic voting cards are compared back to the ballot paper, and what is the variance?
I wonder whether we're talking about different things here, Senator. The process that I've just been through demonstrates that every single paper...
Thank you.
Yep.
Last question, Chair. On this topic anyway, has the AEC ever run a test batch of a few thousand ballot papers through your system, then run those same ballots through a second time and compared the result? Surely any variance between these two runs would give you a figure for system accuracy.
Again, Senator, I'd rely on what I've just said before, that the process that we're running involves a full manual entry of every single ballot paper compared then to the scanning, the capture of the scanned data. So we're doing that in any case.
That's what I thought. Okay. Just a final question, just a loose question. I was thinking as the other senators were asking questions. Voters tell us quite often that they're not in favour of being assaulted by a number of how-to-vote cards distributors, being volunteers distributing how-to-vote cards when they're entering a polling booth. And some of the premises managers get into, have a bit of strife with it too. I don't know, I haven't read the act that covers this, but would there be any possibility or any consideration given to putting the how-to-vote cards in the booth, or is that fundamentally flawed?
Absolutely not, Senator. Yeah. And I know what you're saying, that occasionally people do say that. What I'd say in defence of 99.9% of all of the party workers is most people strive to do the right thing.
Yeah,
we have a few
agree with that.
overexcited individuals that really like to get those how-to-vote cards in the hands of voters, and that can cause some offence, but most people do the right thing. We would never put how-to-votes in the polling place, because then citizens get confused and think we're endorsing a particular process, and it creates grief.
What about if everyone was in there, every party?
Same thing. People then get confused, and I'd be absolutely loath to do that.
That's a fair comment. So if someone's handing it, they can stop them and ask questions about it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Roberts.